Welcome to Success Your Own Way, a podcast about how real people define and redefine success throughout their careers. Hosted by Tina Shurick and Ifat Rogers, this show features candid conversations with guests who've made intentional choices, navigated change, and built lives aligned to their values. Their guests share their stories as well as strategies and tactics that help them along the way. Tina's a certified coach and a former corporate leader who supports professionals in making confident, values-driven decisions. Ifat is a consultant with a background in food science and engineering, helping people solve complex problems with a practical, no-nonsense approach. Each episode offers inspiration and actionable insights for anyone rethinking what success looks like in their life and how to get there.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Success Your Own Way. Today, we are joined by Mindy. We're going to introduce her in a minute. Tina, I'm actually going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have Mindy here today. Mindy Deardurff, she has spent nearly 25 years in early careers, talent development space, and she spent both time in higher education, preparing students for their future, and in Fortune 5 companies. She's led early talent development, internal mobility functions throughout her career. She currently leads early careers and internal mobility at Best Buy, and prior to that, she was leading early careers at a Fortune 5 healthcare company. And before her time in corporate roles, she spent 2 decades in higher education, serving as the Dean of Career Exploration at Macalester College and leading career development and admissions functions at the Carlson School of Management here at the University of Minnesota. As a Pell-eligible college student who worked full-time plus to afford college, she has a passion for providing early careers pathways for those who may not have access. So she is a diehard St. Paul, Minnesota fan and lives there with her 16-year-old son and her husband, David. So welcome, Mindy. It's great to have you.
Thank you. When you say 2 decades, it sounds like a lot.
That did.
It did. It really did.
I get it. Well, I've given our audience just a little teaser about your bio, essentially, but I'm curious in your own words, what's the story that you have? How did you get where you are today?
Yeah. Like you said, I spent my career in a couple of different industries, so mostly in higher education, and then also in corporate. But the interesting piece I think about my background in terms of why I love the work that I do is that I grew up in a town of 92 people. My dad was a janitor. There was very little money. I was one of 4 students. And so when it came time to decide which college I was supposed to go to, I set a couple of colleges in front of my dad and I said, I'd really like your opinion. And he said, I'm watching Wheel of Fortune right now. Can we talk about this later? So I just had no guidance right along the path. And so I'm super passionate about, on the higher ed side, the work that I did, but then also in the work that I do now, how do we take students who don't have someone to help them through the process get to where they are?
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so needed, especially these days.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good.
So, you talked about kind of going and deciding on college. How did the plans for your life align with the actual life experience?
Yeah. If you would have told the girl who grew up in the town of 92 people that she would have been working in a giant building in the middle of Minneapolis, 35 years later, I would have told you you're crazy. For me, I think one of the defining moments of my life is I decided to come to the University of Minnesota. So I left that small town that I grew up in and hit the big city. I went into my first college class and it was a class of 800 students.
Wow.
At the University of Minnesota. Huge change. And then for me, I started out in HR. So I have a master's degree in HR, started out doing, typical HR kind of business partner work. And then I was recruiting for the associate director of the career center at the business school at the University of Minnesota. And I came home and I said, I can't find the right person for this role. And my husband said, I think you're the right person for this role. And I was like, Oh, so what I thought would be like a couple year stint in higher education, because I was finishing my master's degree in HR at the University of Minnesota while I was working.
Okay.
I thought it would be a couple of years, and 20 odd years later, I looked up and I had been tapped on the shoulder a lot along the way. I had 4 different roles when I was at the Carlson School over the 15 years that I was there,
Wow.
all because of awesome leaders who tapped me and said, I think you'd be good in this work. And then one day I realized that if I stayed in higher education any longer, that I was never going to leave.
Yeah.
And so I felt this pull to say, I've got to try something different to diversify my experience because I don't want to wake up at the very back half of my career, right? I'm probably 10 years away from what is or less.
How
than-
exciting.
it's very exciting from the end. And I just didn't want to be pigeonholed and stuck in one place.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I think that variety really, helps you stay interested and engaged in your career and experience success, which is the spirit of this whole podcast. So
Yeah.
that's your own way.
Yeah.
We've had a few guests on and we've asked this question of everyone, which is, how do you define success for yourself, and how has that definition changed over time?
Yeah, it has changed a lot. One of the things about growing up with the background that I grew up in is that you feel that you always need to hustle for your worth because nothing's sort of given to you. You just need to assume that you need to work as hard as you possibly can for as long as you possibly can and get her done. Like that is my top value. It has been my top value always. My say-do ratio is really high. So that drove the first 3/4 of my career, right? Like get it done, keep pushing. And I lived with this belief that as long as I worked very, very hard, I would get to what I needed to get to, right?
Sure.
And what I've learned as I've gotten older is that's not true. It's completely not true. So for me, success now, I still have that like get her done in me, right? It's so deeply ingrained. It's really hard to let go. I have to fight against it, honestly, a lot.
Yeah.
But success for me now, is, am I leading a team in a way where I am treating people with respect and grace? And do I have enough time in my life that I can take care of my own physical and mental health? And can I take care of this young human? I've got a 16, almost 17-year-old son that I'm going to launch into the world. And am I actually teaching him good habits about balance between work and what your life looks like?
Yeah. That role modeling
Yes.
as a parent, that's something Yvette and I have talked a lot about, and finding that balance in the later years of our career being so terribly important, not only for ourselves and our own enjoyment, but for the examples that we're setting for those around us.
Totally. I tell people all the time, we used to do leadership retreats with our students at the University of Minnesota, and 2 of my son's birthdays, his second and his third birthday, I was out in a cabin in the woods doing a leadership retreat for 40 other students and not with him. And do I regret that? I don't, regret's a big word. I don't know that I regret it, but now I don't want to make those trade-offs, right? Like I've got a busy day today. I've got to go take some calls. There's things we've got to get done to deliver. And at 2:00, I'm going to walk away and go to a soccer game.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The kind of the balance of work and life to me started to come a little bit later when I was in a similar position of, okay, I'm in corporate. I still have 20 years in my career. Is this something like, where is the priority? And I was like, well, my son now is in elementary. Well, he's going to be in middle school, but he's in elementary school. This is my time to be a part of the PTA and do some of these things and not be done with my career when he's leaving home. So I want to get to an empty nester and actually feel that I had a nest. That's part of what was, that's part of kind of what was missing in a way, was how do I make time for this human? I create and want to take care of. So
100%.
So I'm going to actually throw you a curveball because I'm really interested in your job and just a little bit on your perspective. You were essentially mentored to so many students that come with a life decision to make, because you mentioned University of Minnesota was really a turning point in a way. How do you help them? Like, what's some of the thought process you help them go through as they're thinking about their decision?
I think that there's two flip sides to the coin that students bring in terms of what they need. And I think the one bucket is the need to understand how to do it, like the practical, tactical pieces of like, how do you do a job search? Because it's not like students go to college understanding how to do it. And it's changing super rapidly now, right? With the advent of AI, and it's a tough market. So they need first and foremost the like practical, tactical pieces of it. So that's a piece of it. But then the second part of the coin and the more fun part is helping them understand why they're making the decisions
Yeah.
that they're making. And I worked at two different types of institutions. I worked at the business school at the University of Minnesota. And then I worked at a private liberal arts, very liberal arts college in St. Paul.
Yeah.
And what was interesting to me is that each of those students brought two very flip sides of that search coin with them. My business school students knew how to do the things. They knew the practical, tactical things because they had often grown up in environments where they saw their parents do it. When I said, why are you doing what you're doing? They couldn't answer the question. At my private liberal arts college I worked at, those students knew, like, you could stop them at any point and have a super deep discussion about why they were doing what they were doing, and they could answer those questions, but then they didn't have the training on the like practical, tactical pieces they needed to do. So
Interesting.
so there's both sides to it, and I think they have to trust you, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, when I do things like disclose that I grew up in a trailer house and my dad was a custodian, those are the kinds of things that make those connections with students. And they then trust you to say, like, here's what I don't know and here's what I need help with.
Yeah.
Yep. That's that's great. I mean, those decision points when there is no one to turn to and help think. And one of the things you said is why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Which is part of kind of a lot of things that I push. Why are you doing it?
Right.
How do you even know that that is the reason? And then how do you turn that then into, okay, this is what my career could look like.
Right.
Here's what I actually want to do. So
Yeah.
the why is important, but to me is also the why do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know? Because
Yeah.
you know, I'm thinking about my son, like for him it's gonna be, well, I need to go to school. Both my parents did. Like that's not a good enough reason.
That's
And
right.
sometimes it can even be kind of subconscious of
That's
this
right.
this is the path I know. So
Yeah.
It can, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. You pulled on this thread of making decisions.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, if you think back to your career, your life, is there a decision that you feel like you made that really changed the course or really set the course for yourself in your life,
Yeah.
your journey to success?
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And it was when I moved from the University of Minnesota to the private liberal arts college that I worked at. So I had been sort of grinding and pushing in a number of different leadership positions within the undergraduate program function. So we served all 2,000 undergraduate students in the business school. So I led admissions, I led the career center. I was kind of making my way around all the functions that would have made me a successful assistant dean. So the leader of that program. And I served for a little bit as the de facto chief of staff to that undergraduate assistant dean. She decided to leave the program. And my son at that point was probably 3 or 4, kind of older toddler. I went to the leader of my leader, who was male, and I said, I just want you to know I really want this role. I've been working towards it, and I think you'll hear from the people who work with me that I've done all the things to be ready for this role. And he looked at me and he said, boy, I didn't know that's something that you wanted because you have a child.
Oh, wow.
Huh? And I was so taken aback. I went home and I said to my husband, I don't think I can do this anymore. I've put literally 15 years into prepping and preparing for this role. There's no one who is better qualified for this position than me. And I knew that deep in my gut. And I immediately started searching for a new job. And about a month later, I went to him and I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to take the Dean of Career Exploration position at McAllister College. And he said, I'm so surprised. And had I known that, I would have just given you that job.
Okay.
And so that really defined my career for me because I was brave enough to say, I can't work for this leader. I'm going to walk away. And on paper, going from the University of Minnesota, the big flagship college, the business school that I was in was known as being a top tier place to work, a well-paying place to work in student affairs. And I left that to go to a much smaller institution. And on paper, that decision looked like a really, really bad decision, right? It looked like I was taking a step backwards. Title, it was a step up, but type of institution. And that next 6 years when I worked at that institution were the best 6 years of my career. And so being able to feel safe in my own, I am confident enough to say I bring enough to this that if you're not going to respect that, I need to walk away. It was a huge turning point for me.
That is huge. I just feel like, especially with all of the the layoffs and things that are happening right now, and my own experience being laid off, I feel like sometimes the universe just gives you what you need, even though you don't even know you need it.
Yeah.
And it may even be something you don't want. Like you actually have said, I do not want to have to look right now, change careers, change companies, because they're switching costs. It is hard to make changes. But the fact that you listened to your gut and you knew your worth, I think that's huge. And I think that's really helpful for our listeners too, who may be facing similar situations at work where they don't feel valued. They don't feel like they're getting the seat that they have earned. And I have the courage, hopefully through this conversation, to say enough's enough. I am in control. I am going to make that choice. That's going to be best for me and my family. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just to me, just listening, the power of managers is dangerous. So a lot of, people don't wake up one day and decide, I want to leave. Usually there is some sort of, things that are changing and you start to get the thought, but then there is an event, there is a person, there is someone that kind of pushes, just get it over the slow activation hurdle, because it is hard to leave and you have to get through that bump. And sometimes that bump is just a manager. It's just an event at work. There's a lot of power
100%
in that.
And that was my same experience when working in a Fortune 5 healthcare company, right? I mean, change after change after change, and who I rolled up to from a leadership perspective made all the difference in the world in my day to day. And I had to relearn that lesson again, right? That you don't need to constantly hustle for your worth, because if you've got a manager who does not have your back at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do to hustle past that. There just isn't. So I learned that there as well, right? There was a major restructure and layoffs at that healthcare company. There was another option that would have been available for me to stay within the organization. And again, I had to be brave enough to say, I don't want that. I could stay and risk again for the third or fourth time having a manager who was not supportive, who did not have my back. And it's at some point, at some age, you just get to the point where you're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I think it's 40.
Maybe it is. 40. I'm creeping on 50. So maybe it is 40.
Yeah,
40 is a beautiful thing.
Around 40. I don't know if it takes the confidence, or to me, around 40 is where I really stopped and said, okay, I've spent 20 years of my career. I have at least 20 more.
Yeah.
How do I want them to look? And at that point, okay, I'm getting corporate. I'm getting some of these things. I want to try it on my own. And kind of 40 was, okay, I still have a long enough career. This is the time to do it. So the timing and the environment impact those decisions.
100%.
Yeah,
Totally agree.
We talked about decision. What's your proudest moment? What made it your proudest?
Yeah, I feel like one of my proudest moments was that decision for me to leave that healthcare company and fully step away. Because again, I could have continued, and there were other roles that would have been roles that I could have stepped into. And for me, it's hard, right? Because there is financial security that comes with that. There's ego that comes with that. There was a team I was leaving behind, which I loved the team who worked for me. They were hardworking, phenomenal. And I needed to just make that decision to say, I got to do what I need to do for me. I can't, again, there's only so many years left in my career, and I'm not going to do it in a place that doesn't feel good to me anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And having people in the team, I was always struggling with playing, corporate politics, but it really started bothering me when I figured I can't really protect my team as much as I
Oh my
want to.
gosh.
Even if I don't care as much about my promotion,
Yes.
if I don't do something different than what I'm feeling comfortable doing to get my team promoted, then
Yes.
then that's a problem. And it
That's
was, I
right.
think, part of like when I realized I don't have enough power to actually do what I want for them.
That's right.
That was part of what pushed me out, because I really enjoyed managing a team, but I felt like I don't
Yeah.
have not the tactical or strategic tool to do it, but the almost empowerment.
That's right. That's
do.
right. That was the thing that kept me up at night, right? Is that I could manage up and I could protect only so much, right?
Yeah.
And then you hit a point where, it all trickles down, and to watch my team suffer, and then to not be the kind of leader that I wanted to be. I couldn't be decisive. I couldn't be strategic, right? Like it starts to impact your ability to be and do the things you're good at for your team.
Leverage those strengths for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think your career history will be very interesting to our leaders. I also think they would love some tips from you.
Yeah.
And especially your own journey moving from, running early careers and being early in your career to your more mid-career or close to the end of career, wherever you are. I'm curious what you see as differences, if any, in the guidance or advice you give someone who is kind of early in career relative to someone who's mid or later in the career. Does it change a lot?
It does. It really does. Early in career is about discovery and the recognition that the chances that you can take early in your career, there's a lot of them available to you, and the risks are not as big.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for young talent to understand, because they only know what they know. They can only see the horizon that they can see. And so sometimes I feel like I'm grounding young talent in the maybe you don't have a partner yet. You maybe don't have a mortgage yet. You haven't established yourself in a particular industry. Try things, go out and try things, and helping them to understand that the risk that they are facing is actually far lower than they probably think it is.
I remember it feeling really risky at the time, but looking back, it was like, man, the world was my oyster. How did I not know that? I wish somebody would have told me, these are the times to make your mistakes and to experiment, to take risks and try new things. And so that makes sense. That resonates with me.
Yeah. And to take take it and own it, because I see a lot of young folks today who are really they feel paralyzed by all of the things that are happening in the world. It is not an easy time to be a college graduate, mounting student loan debt, uncertainty about majors, AI, all of it. Political landscape, it's all very, very hard. And so acknowledging that that is true. That is actually true, that it is very, very hard. And you got to take it, and you can't be a victim of that. No matter what you go and do, it might not be the super prescribed path that someone told you were going to be able to take.
Right.
You're a software engineer, and all of a sudden you graduate now into a market that has no jobs for you domestically. You've got to do something. You've got to be oriented towards action. So that's a lot of the advice I would give to younger talent is, you got to just do. And so even if you feel paralyzed, you've got to move forward, even if it's not the dream you originally had in your head.
Yeah.
When I talk to students that just graduate and are going into a technical field, like food science, I always tell them your first 2 or 3 years, this is a great time to learn. You don't yet have yes, you have projects, you have responsibility, but you don't yet have something that's way bigger. This is your time to really learn, to make the mistake. So don't immediately think about I'm going to go in, I'm going to be perfect. It's not a realistic expectation unless I don't know who you are. But this is really a time to learn and start to put things into practice. You may find even after a year that this is not for me, but this is the time to do it. Kind of at the beginning. Assessing.
And for more mature career searchers, so when I worked in both of my roles, we served our full alumni population. So we coached and mentored folks in all stages of their career.
Great.
And then I take coaching clients on the side when I've got time to do it. And so when I talk with folks who are later in their career, it's about bravery, and it's about imagining what things could be, because you've trod a path for so long, it's hard to even think about the decisions that don't continue down that path. And so there's a really interesting framework, a design thinking framework that's used around career development that I think is really useful for folks who are further along in their career.
Mhm.
You sort of imagine yourself 5 years from where you are, but in 3 wildly different scenarios. And
Mhm.
so you run into someone in a grocery store and they say, Tina, what are you doing now? And you come up with 3 different scenarios for how you would answer that question. And then you unpack how each of those scenarios might make you feel. And it's a really powerful way for people to really kind of dig deep and go, man, when I say I'm going to still be in this corporate career working for this boss who doesn't respect me, like I kind of feel sick inside.
Yes.
And then to dream, right? Like if nothing, and there are gravity problems, right? There are things maybe you need to contribute a certain amount to your family. You've got to be in a certain geographical location. We got to identify those gravity factors. But aside from those, like what else could this look like? And how would you feel saying like, this is the path I chose to
Yeah.
take?
I was just to build on a real life story, just talking to somebody recently who was laid off and older in their career, more experienced person. And they laid out 3 different things that they had been considering. And I could tell as they were explaining it, which ones resonated with them and which there were 2 that were like, yeah, those could be options. And then the third one they mentioned, I was like, why are you even talking about this? There is no energy. There's no passion here. There's no confidence here. There's no interest in this. Like, I think you can probably rule that one out. That doesn't seem like the right path.
Your body doesn't lie.
No.
Yeah.
No. It's interesting to listen to those signals.
Yeah.
It often leads you in the right direction.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's really hard, especially if you have been rewarded for the way you've worked up until that point in your life, and it's part of your identity. I mean, my leadership in higher education was so core to my identity that when I decided to leave higher education, like it took me some time to feel comfortable at a cocktail party saying like, I work for a Fortune 5 corporation.
It was an identity change for Mindy.
Completely.
Yeah.
I love that. We are actually at time.
Okay.
Time always flies when you're in person. I love it. So as we're closing, thanks everyone for joining us. We also have a YouTube channel, so please go and check it out. Like, subscribe. I can tell my age here. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with others who may enjoy it as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mindy. I love this conversation. I love that we had an aspect also from higher education, something a little different than what we've had. So I'm grateful, and Tina.
Yes, I'll extend my thanks to Mindy for joining us today. It's been great to hear your story and for you to share those tips. Would love to hear from you. Any other topics or guests that you think we ought to have on our Success Your Own Way podcast? We're very open to that. So, and thank you to Ifat for all of her partnership on this podcast as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Success Your Own Way. We hope you found this episode inspiring and took away actionable insights. Please tune in for our next episode. And if you know someone who is rethinking what success looks like in their life, please share this episode with them.